Born with the gift of the gab. With MagMongoSlade. Shoot. He don't miss.
May 30th, 2025 Smackdown. I'm going to discuss this. And then we're gonna sprinkle in news and notes throughout the thing because I don't want to put a specific time on it. I want to surprise people each time when I'm going to talk about news and notes. Sometimes I'm going to do a video. Sometimes I'm not. I don't want people to get too comfortable with what I'm doing here. Well, so we're going to start at the end of the show. Cody Rhodes and John Cena. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to work our way to the beginning of the show, which was actually quite good. I think the show peaked right there, if we're being honest, when it comes to storytelling and things like this. So Cody Rhodes and John Cena, we're going to truncate this a little bit. Cody Rhodes says that he questioned whether he was a good champion and told her he was good, given what he had to deal with. And he even mentioned the politics backstage. And he even mentioned the final boss. And that got a lot of oohs. Cody Rhodes having to deal with the politics backstage is very interesting that he would mention that in a promo, right? He says that he hesitated with John Cena. He will never hesitate again. And that despite all of the clock ticking, that the expiration is right here for John Cena. Then he called out for Jey Uso. We got 5 or 6 minutes of yeeting. I was incredibly tired. At this point, I did start to zone out. And I was not really paying attention to the promo much anymore. Jey didn't say anything. He just yeeted and he got interrupted by John Cena. John Cena called both Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso wannabes. Cody Rhodes wants his fame. Jey Uso wants his money. But Cody is too desperate and Jey is too lazy. Then he said he wanted to call out somebody who represents and embodies hustle, loyalty, and respect. His partner, Logan Paul. He said that Logan Paul is a better wrestler than any pro wrestler and that he doesn't need to pay his dues because he pays people's mortgages. Logan Paul got on the microphone and said he should be World Heavyweight Champion right now, but Jey got lucky. He called Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso Nepo babies while him and Cena are self-made men. They bicker some more before it finally broke down into a fight. And Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes are the last 2 men standing after a Cody, which is a 3D with a springboard cutter. I gotta say, I like it. I like that move for them. I like that. I think it's pretty cool. My first mind state after watching this is that Cena absolutely glazing Logan Paul was a great way to get heat. And after the week Logan Paul has had, when he kind of go back and forth with Karrion Kross, it matters. You know, it really hits home because Cena is saying, look, this guy doesn't have to pay any dues. He's a big star. He doesn't have to pay dues. Like, what do you mean? Which is the very opposite of what John Cena should be saying, right? It's the exact opposite of what John Cena has always stood for. And listening to Logan Paul and Karrion Kross have their issue, you know, Logan Paul basically says, look, I've had what he says attention for a decade. I've had these impressions for a decade. I've had this following for a decade. This is what I bring to WWE on top of actually being, you know, pretty good and athletic and such. And then Karrion Kross responded that if pro wrestlers were allowed to build a brand outside of pro wrestling, then there would be more pro wrestlers in the position like Logan Paul, which is a good point. There was always this story, and I think Jesse the Body Ventura, who Karrion Kross knows pretty well, he told the story that Jesse Ventura figured out that's why Hulk Hogan was on top. It's because Hulk Hogan was a pro wrestler, and he was a popular pro wrestler. But once he did Rocky, and then turned around and came back into pro wrestling, he was more popular. And Jesse Ventura said he talked to Vince McMahon about this, Vincent K. McMahon, and said, it seems like the secret is to leave wrestling, become a big star, and then turn around and come back. And then Vince McMahon told him, yes, that's the plan. That's what he wants. That's what he likes for people to do. And that's around the time Jesse Ventura decided to go and do Predator. You know, on top of the arguments about money, that increased Jesse the Body Ventura's value to the WWE. Is he left to go do movies? If Karrion Kross should have realized this, you know, and if we and he's a super fan from my understanding, he's been a message board guy. He's probably read that story 1,000 times. That is how wrestling has worked, you know, whether it's on purpose or by accident. People who live and breathe pro wrestling have been doing this or wanting to do this since they were kids. They hit a ceiling after a while, you know, unless they're really, really good. Usually they hit a ceiling because there's only so much notoriety that can be had in the wrestling space. You have to turn yourself into some kind of attraction. You know, the idea that some people cross over into the mainstream from pro wrestling, and then, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin being one of them. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin wasn't in a movie or anything when he became the biggest star in the country. It wasn't because he had went and done some movie and came back. He crossed over from pro wrestling into popular culture. And that's a very different vibe. And, you know, The Rock similarly crossed over into popular culture, but then he went and did movies and came back. You know, Brock Lesnar hit a ceiling. He wasn't a huge draw in his first run in WWE. Then he went to the UFC, was proved to be a huge draw, and then he came back. Karrion Kross should have seen that and seen that pattern, and that explains why Pat McAfee and Logan Paul are getting matches on TV while guys like Dragon Lee and himself are not. You know? And this, when you talk about why certain people can't get a chance, or why certain people don't get shots, or why certain people don't get time, a lot of it has to do with they haven't been around enough or haven't been around long enough to build any equity. Like when I did the video talking about MVP and black wrestlers and all this kind of stuff, a lot of those guys they haven't been around that long. You know? Like Lashley is one of the few guys had been around a long time. MVP had. Shelton Benjamin had. The New Day, they've been around for over a decade. I think Kofi Kingston is creeping up on 20 years, if not 20 years. But how many of them crossed over into the mainstream, did something else, turned around and came back? Lashley was gone out of WWE for years. He did mixed martial arts, but he never became like a world champion in mixed martial arts or anything like that. Didn't do any movies or anything of that nature. He just came back and was still a pro wrestler. When you have to expand the pool sometimes, and Kross is right when he says that WWE for a long time didn't allow people to go outside of pro wrestling to expand the pool. They wanted to have their job, but also build a brand outside of the company. And he had to realize that you can't do those two things at the same time. That when you're a wrestler, you have to be all in. If you want to step away, that's fine. But when you're a wrestler, you have to be all in. At least that's what WWE prefers. And, well, Vince McMahon, that's what he prefers. Who knows what this current administration will allow? Who knows? But he had a good point, and that debate and that argument is being brought into this storyline. Because now John Cena, who is, you know, a hypocrite, going back on what he truly believed about hustle, loyalty, and respect in order to put Logan Paul on a pedestal as sort of better than any other pro wrestler, and that, you know, forget the idea of paying dues. You know, so that's very interesting. And positioning Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso as Nepo babies. The interesting bit is because they are. You know, like a lot of the time that they were given, the opportunities that they had is because of who their father is. You know, even if it's just that in-house advice, just sitting around a table, there's, you know, decades of experience that you have access to that other people don't. you know, not just equity in the company, not just history in your name, but dad being able to give you advice at any point in time, you know, while you're just riding up the road. You know, like that kind of, you can't replace that kind of advantage. But it doesn't work for everybody, clearly. Just because you're a Nepo baby or you had a daddy in the business doesn't mean that you're automatically good. There's quite a few Nepo babies who are not good. There's a lot of them, actually. More than there. And it doesn't matter how successful your dad was. Carmella was technically a Nepo baby. Her daddy was a wrestler. But he was a jobber. You know? I'm pretty sure she learned something from about wrestling from her daddy. But her daddy ain't nobody anybody would actually know. He was a jabroni. But, you know, but you probably wouldn't even call her a Nepo baby. She would be second generation, but her daddy was a jobber, so it doesn't matter. Different from Charlotte, whose daddy is Ric Flair, you know? And for years it was, let's push the girl as an opportunity to put Ric Flair on TV. So it's different. But the understanding is when you're second generation, you understand the business a little bit more. And guys like Cody Rhodes and guys like Jey Uso are being positioned as guys who didn't work for it. They didn't have to work for it. While a guy like Logan Paul, who literally didn't work for it, is being told he doesn't have to. You know, like it's a strange knot that they're tying here. But the point is to get John Cena some heat. That's what they want. I don't really like this segment because I felt like everything was rushed, and I'm still not a fan of how Cena does his promos now. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the stilted, robotic, monotone John Cena voice. I don't like it. But I see what they're trying to do, and I see that Cena's being ironic here. You know, it's ironic that, you know, a wrestler known for his work ethic, known for being the greatest of all time, preaching things like hustle, loyalty, and respect, he would put Logan Paul, who everybody sees is a bum, who is a YouTuber and a podcaster, who got grandfathered into a good spot in pro wrestling. You have other wrestlers complaining about it. It's something that the fans are behind. And this is where Triple H is sort of ripping from the headlines. He's like, oh, people think that Logan Paul doesn't deserve it. Let's go with that. Let's go and let's actually make that John Cena's thing is that Logan Paul doesn't deserve it. Because we already know 10 years ago, John Cena would have been the first in line to say that Logan Paul has no business being in pro wrestling. He doesn't deserve it. He hasn't paid his dues. He doesn't have a work ethic. And he's going to kick his ass and all that kind of stuff. But now they're trying to force feed this John Cena heel turn. They're going to put him on the same side. I don't even like the idea of this tag team match, to be quite honest. I think it's a waste of John Cena. Rikishi made a comment where he thinks it's a waste of Jey Uso. And he basically says they should just fire creative and they let him book his son. And it's almost like a hardcore Holly thing. Or how about just give me the belt and I beat everybody? It's like, yeah, I get it, right? I don't like it because it ties up 2 world titles here. Now, Triple H will probably tell you, well, we don't need the belts because Money in the Bank. So we don't really need the belts. I'll tell you, it would have been nice to have a world title match at the Money in the Bank show. Again, you have guys who don't have the exposure that they should have. And you have guys that are looking for opportunities. And this doesn't really benefit Jey Uso. I mean, it kind of does. In so much that it puts him in the ring with John Cena. And it helps elevate Jey to be in the ring with John Cena. But it continues this Jey Uso Logan Paul thing, which I don't know if many people are in favor of it. I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I don't hate Logan Paul like everybody else does. I don't hate Jey Uso as much as everybody else does. I'm exhausted with the yeeting stuff. I have yeet fatigue. I do. I've had yeet fatigue for a long time. But mostly I have an issue that the rest of the roster is so underutilized that this is a big problem. And that this tag team match seemingly is a waste of John Cena's final run. The issue is this. I don't think Cena can go anymore. And I think he's going to limp across the finish line. I don't think Cena's willing to give 100% anymore, destroy his body anymore, and I don't think he needs to. This last run is about, him saying goodbye to the fans. It is not about him trying to go out with a bang, which is what all the cage match guys think. Oh, look at all the great matches Danielson gave before he left, and then look what they're doing with John Cena before he left. It's like Danielson basically scrambled his brains 100 times in that run. But he's got nothing else. I don't want to put it that way because he's got his family, but he didn't have anything else to live for, Like, pro wrestling is what he does. Once he's not wrestling anymore and he's a producer or whatever it is he's doing, that's completely different than John Cena, who wants to go back into Hollywood. And physically, he can't go back into Hollywood with broken bones and an injured neck and 4 different concussions and all this kind of shit. Like, it's just not going to work. So it's a different ballgame, but I don't think Cena wants to do that. I think he wants to try to help other people. And Triple H has been doing a good job of elevating other people using John Cena. But he realizes that at this point in time, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso are 2 of his top guys, and Logan Paul is one of his top heels. And if you put him in there with John Cena, they're going to get the rub. Cody's already been in there, but okay. Right? So I guess that's the plan. I think Rikishi needs to chill, though. Him criticizing the booking pretty much every week turns people against Jay. They get, that's the Nepo baby stuff. That your dad has a podcast and can complain about your booking. Literally happens to nobody else. Like, I don't even remember Ric Flair complaining about Charlotte's booking on podcasts. I'm pretty sure it happened once or twice. But it wasn't with this level of regularity. And why doesn't he care about the booking of Jimmy? He don't give a fuck about Jimmy, huh? Jimmy can be a jabroni as long as Jay is doing okay. Very weird. But that's that top segment. Let's talk about Money in the Bank now. So, before we get into the Money in the Bank matches on SmackDown, they announced the Money in the Bank match for Raw. The qualifier match is CM Punk versus AJ Styles versus El Grande Americano. And a lot of people were grumbling because of El Grande Americano. Chad Gable already had a Money in the Bank qualifier and he lost. But now he's going to get a second chance as El Grande Americano. And it's obvious to me that they're doing a dual face kind of gimmick where it's 2 different people, clearly. So it might be that Chad Gable is running double duty that weekend, that he's going to wrestle at Worlds Collide and then wrestle at Money in the Bank. And that seems to be the direction that we're going in. Now, some ridiculous story that I saw floating around is that, on WWE's internal records or lists or whatever, AJ Styles is listed as an enhancement talent. If you believe that, you're a fucking idiot. All right? You're an idiot. You know what an enhancement? That's a jabroni. That's a jobber. No. AJ Styles is not a jobber. CM Punk, of course, is a big star. A lot of people want CM Punk to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm okay with it if that's the direction they want to go in, and I think that they should probably go in that direction. I think the AJ Styles story with the Intercontinental Championship, which was teased, and then they went away from it, and they haven't gone back to it. Like, I don't know what that's about. But I don't think El Grande Americano should beat 2 legends and get into the Money in the Bank ladder match. I just don't think so. It's a comedy character. Just let's put this thing in very real terms. It's a comedy gimmick. We shouldn't, this is serious business. We got now they're probably going to have Seth Rollins or somebody interfere and cost CM Punk the match. more than likely they're going to jump him or something like that. That's going to get some heat. It's going to get Punk out of here. Okay, fair enough. At that point, AJ Styles should win. I just don't think that it's a good idea for El Grande Americano to be in Money in the Bank. I just don't think it's a good idea. Now, on SmackDown's Money in the Bank qualifier, it was Jacob Fatu, Andrade, and Carmelo Hayes. We spent a lot of time, we talk a lot about Carmelo Hayes, and they're doing this angle with him and The Miz, where The Miz says he put his credibility on the line when it comes to Carmelo Hayes. That he gave Carmelo Hayes his opportunity to be in the Money in the Bank match. And then they had an issue. The issue is Melo thinks that he's here because he deserves to be here. And Miz looks at it from the position of, I put you here. So they're now putting these two against each other. Carmelo's ego cannot handle the fact that The Miz has helping to elevate him. Andrade, if you thought Andrade was going to talk, forget it. It just wasn't going to happen. And of course, Jacob Fatu is surrounded by Solo Sikoa, who's already in the match. And Solo Sikoa is just doing shit, apparently. Like they had a match between JC Mateo, who of course is Jeff Cobb, who beat R-Truth earlier in the night, and Solo Sikoa was outside the ring dancing. Like doing something with his knees that looked absolutely absurd, and realized like, oh, he's a silly boy. Oh, he's silly. Solo is not to be taken serious at all. Like the idea of him being the stoic, quiet bodyguard type, that's gone. Like he's gone through so many. His character has gone through such a regression in 2 years. Like he's trying to show some personality, but now he's basically fucking Drewski outside the ring. Which is, I guess, fine because it's getting him a lot of attention, so it works. He's not the street champion and all that shit anymore, right? But in this triple threat match, a lot happened. There was quite a bit of Carmelo Hayes and Andrade are just they work very well together, and Jacob Fatu, of course, is tremendous. Solo distracted Jacob after the double jump moonsault. That allowed Jimmy to attack Solo and JC Mateo, who are outside the ring. JC Mateo and Jacob Fatu got into an argument, and Andrade pinned Carmelo Hayes. So Andrade is in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and Carmelo Hayes is not, and I'm happy with the outcome. The thing about my issue with it is that there's no heat behind Andrade. Most people don't know if he's a babyface or a heel. He's just a guy who goes out there and has really good matches. He has a great flying elbow, a great flying forearm. It makes a lot of connection. It looks good. His back elbow looks good. A lot of Andrade's shit looks great. And he might be great for that market, let's say. I don't think he has a chance of winning, though. So I don't think he has a chance in hell of winning. Now, Jacob Fatu didn't need to win. He's a U.S. champion. He didn't need to win. Carmelo Hayes did need to win. But it kind of furthers his storyline for him to lose. Because now his angle with The Miz is going to deepen. As he dropped the ball, he was given the ball, he bricked it again, to use a basketball reference. And I know he loves basketball. The issue here is that it's going to become a time where people are going to stop caring about Carmelo Hayes, and it's going to just realize that this guy's not going anywhere. And you don't want people to give up on a guy so soon. And again, the Triple H booking has basically been give up on a lot of the young guys. Just give up on them. Braun Breaker is a lackey. Austin Theory is a joke. Carmelo Hayes is a jabroni. Why would you invest so much time and effort and energy into these people? Braun Breaker, of course, he's a 2-time Intercontinental Champion, but he's not exactly showcased all the time here. He's basically the attack. They literally called him an attack dog on Raw. So I guess it'll be a while before his role expands in that group, and he's chasing titles and is somebody important on the show. Right now, he's just an enforcer for Seth Rollins. But Andrade winning, I'm not angry at that, not upset at that. I think it's a good idea, so I can't complain. Now, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. They announced the women's Money in the Bank match for Raw. Let's talk about that real quick. So the women's Money in the Bank qualifiers for Monday Night Raw feature Stephanie Vaquer versus Liv Morgan versus Ivy Nile. And we all know Ivy Nile that's not going to work. We already know you can just count her out. But Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vaquer, essentially. Now, Stephanie Vaquer, of course, just lost the NXT Championship to JC Jane. People are saying, well, this is just her call-up match. This is going to be her opportunity. It seems to be this is going to be the smart move to go with Stephanie Vaquer and put her in this spot. But Liv Morgan is the bigger star, right? So, do you put Liv in the match for her star power? Or do you put Stephanie Vaquer in the match to increase her profile? Now, Stephanie Vaquer should not need a Money in the Bank in order to qualify to be the world champion, but Liv Morgan, it could be useful for future storyline reasons if Liv Morgan was, the Money in the Bank winner. You could always it could be some interesting stuff between Liv Morgan and Tiffany Stratton. I don't really want to revisit Liv Morgan versus Io Sky, but Liv Morgan versus Tiffany Stratton could be very interesting. Stephanie Vaquer versus both could be interesting as well. I think she would have a really fantastic match with Io Sky. And I think Money in the Bank would kind of ruin that concept. So, who's going to win this match, though? And I think you should bet your money on Liv Morgan winning this match. I think that Liv Morgan in the match would increase the profile of the match. And you also have the outside interference of Raquel Rodriguez, which of course gives you a clear heel in the match and clear amounts of cheating. So you got star power, you got heat. There is a substantial belief that if Liv Morgan was in it, she would have a chance to win. So I would go with Liv Morgan winning this match. Would I put her over in the Money in the Bank contest, though? That's to be seen, Now, the Money in the Bank qualifier on SmackDown, Nia Jax versus Naomi versus Jade Cargill. Bianca Belair started the show in Knoxville talking about, being back home, and she came back to heel. This is a safe space, blah, blah, blah. And she was interrupted by Naomi, who just says she wants forgiveness. And she's been trying to talk to Bianca every day. She thinks about what happened to them every day. But Bianca hasn't been answering her calls or responding to her text message. So she swung by Bianca's house. And I was like, whoa, this shit took a dark turn. She said she swung by her house. She said, but nobody was home. So she let herself in. Then she said she flipped through her photo album, from her time in college or whatever. And she looked so happy. It looked like when we were the tag team champions. And Bianca was definitely disturbed, and so was the audience, and so was I. And I was like, okay, I'm with this now. This is the shits. I like this. All right? I'm with this. This is good. Bianca said that she can't trust Naomi. They were friends, and she lied to her face about what she had done to Jade Cargill. And then she says that if you come around my family again, what you did to Jade is going to be the least of your troubles, basically. And Naomi said, it would be bad if both you and your mama were in a wheelchair. I'm like, my God, this thing is taken to a next level where I didn't even know her mama was in the wheelchair. Holy shit. All right. Okay. We're going somewhere now. This is good. And Naomi and Bianca look like they're about to have a problem. And then here comes Jade Cargill, who stomps to the ring, and Naomi gets beat up. And then Jade stares at Bianca, turns her back, and is about to leave. And then Nia Jax comes out there to set up this match. I'm telling you, Naomi stalking Bianca Belair is fantastic. I like this. This is really good. This character almost always works in wrestling. Now it didn't work for DDP. I think that might be the only time it didn't work. But And I think they probably did some kind of stalker angle in TNA that didn't work either. But for the most part, if you have a very creepy, obsessed sort of character, it usually works. I liked when they did it with Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns, where Bray Wyatt had a picture of Roman's daughter. I think that was the only child he had at the time. And, like he had cut like the face and stuff off of it or whatever. Like that was creepy. Naomi's character taking that dark turn, I think it was necessary. It was very important to breathe new life into the character so that she wasn't just a character that was jealous of Jade Cargill. But now we're going deeper. That it's more than jealousy. That there is an obsession here. And I like this because it opens up not only a whole new feud, but it opens up different levels of the character where, it's very Tyler Perry movie. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm not mad at that. All right. This is the kind of stuff that I like. This is taking chances. This is taking a risk. You've taken a baby face that everybody loves in Naomi and turned her into an obsessive, stalkerish heel. And it's made sense. The decompensation of Naomi's character has made sense. It hasn't been out of the blue like the John Cena heel turn, which, is obvious. That came out of nowhere. There were, virtually no seeds planted of that. But the seeds of Naomi getting to this point were planted a long time ago where, she talked about calling Bianca and Bianca won't answer the phone and all this sort of stuff. So naturally, if you're friends with somebody, you just swing by the house. People do this shit all the time and they don't realize how creepy it is, right? You get into an argument with a girl, she just shows up at your house. And sometimes it's the other way around. A girl and a guy get into an argument, he just shows up at her house. Like that's automatically kind of a red flag, So I'm glad that they did this. This was excellent. Now, the Money in the Bank qualifier match, though, oh boy. It was something. It was a clunky one. Nobody in this match is a ring general. I think they did the best that they could, given the circumstances. Naomi wins with a crucifix pin on Nia Jax, believe it or not. So Jade Cargill is not going to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, but Naomi will be. Look, Naomi deserves it. I'll say that. She worked her ass off. She's doing a great job with this gimmick. She's doing a great job with this character. She's been in the mix with the world title for a while. Even after she won this match, she went to Tiffany Stratton and said, basically, you were in my way when I was chasing the world title, so I'm definitely coming after you once I win Money in the Bank. And that was very necessary to remind people that, yeah, Naomi wrestled Nia Jax a bunch of times, and Tiffany Stratton was in the way. She was Nia Jax's lackey at the time. So you're going to keep that storyline going. It's just now going to be, possibly with Naomi in a power position with the Money in the Bank. Now, I think Jade should be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I think that she definitely should be in it, but there's only a limited number of spots, and I think they're doing 3 from Raw, 3 from SmackDown or something like that. So maybe next year. And I don't think Jade Cargill kind of needs Money in the Bank anyway. I think she's, the kind of person that was just in the title if she's going to be the champion. Nia Jax shouldn't be anywhere near this, though. I'll say that Nia Jax did a crossbody off the top rope. Not the top rope, but the second rope onto both Naomi and Jade. And it looked like it hurt like hell. Also, Nia Jax did an annihilator. She tried to squash both of them. But Naomi moved, and she came right down on Jade Cargill's rib cage. Now, thankfully, Jade Cargill is, shredded. And that basically acts as a suit of armor. Otherwise, I would think she would be in the hospital. But the idea that all 300 pounds plus of Nia Jax falling on your sternum is probably not a good move. It's got to have a dresser jumping on your chest. No, it's probably not a good idea. You know what I'm saying? But Naomi wins is great. It's the right move. They should definitely consider Naomi winning Money in the Bank. You know, they should definitely consider that, because I think as an option, as a performer, I think she's done her best work now. This character is very believable. It has a lot of depth to it. I don't know if it can be world champion, but it can certainly elevate Naomi to the next level. There's something to be said about, stalker characters being world champion, that, maybe that's not the best idea. All right, so Money in the Bank stuff, it's okay. Can't complain. I didn't really care for the match, but I did like the outcome. They did a segment with R-Truth to lead up to that match with JC Mateo, where R-Truth thinks that JC Mateo is Solo Sikoa's son. He talked about how all three of them are husky and big boned, and I thought that was funny. R-Truth, man, I can't believe he's wrestling more. He lost to JC Mateo, by the way, and it was what it was. I forgot to mention, Jacob Fatu threw a tantrum after he lost in the Money in the Bank match because of Solo. And he told Solo this is the last time he's going to tell him, but he doesn't need Solo's help. Clearly, the idea was Solo was already in the Money in the Bank. He didn't want Jacob Fatu in it, right? Like, that's the undercurrent to that angle, is why he jumped up there and was giving him bad advice. Solo, I don't think Jacob sees it yet, but is what it is at this point. Chelsea Green is wearing signs. Like, there's signs in front of her face because her face was busted at Saturday Night's Main Event. So she made the most of it. And they had signs of her face made, and they put them over her face. And Nick Aldis, of course, pretended that he couldn't hear because these things are blocking her face, which was funny. It was very funny. Chelsea Green is very creative. I gotta give you, she's good. She's a good one. But she wants Zelina Vega stripped of the championship for what she did to her face, and Nick Aldis, of course, refused. And so Alba Fire says, "You do something about it, or we will." And so he agreed to allow Alba Fire to wrestle Zelina Vega. That match was brutal. But Zelina Vega defeated Alba Fire in that match. Chelsea Green is wearing an LGBTQ colored mask. It's just becoming her whole personality, And I'm not tripping on it. The pride stuff is a fashion statement, and it's becoming her whole personality, and it's cringe. It's cringe as all hell, if we're being honest. Chelsea Green tried to use the mask as a weapon. She missed and hit Piper Niven in the face instead. She ended up distracting Alba Fire, who was winning the match, by the way. And Zelina Vega won with the code red. This Zelina Vega thing, not sure it's working out, but it seems like she's going to be transitional. Later in the show, Zelina Vega is walking around backstage, and she bumps into Julia. And Julia wants that championship. They also did a video package for Julia where she said she's always had one goal, and that's to be indisputable, and that all opponents are just to add to her legacy. She actually did most of the promo in English, which shows that her English is much better than people was giving it credit for. And I'm ready for this. I'm ready for Julia to be the U.S. champion. I think all of us has pitched this idea that in order to establish this title, you need to give it to somebody who is legitimate, and I think Julia is legitimate. Of course, Julia is already in the Money in the Bank ladder match, so basically we're telling everybody that she's not going to win that match, and she's going to instead win this U.S. title, which is fine. I don't think people are going to be too upset about that. But Zelina, there could be so much more for her to do, but the mid-card being booked around Chelsea Green has been a problem, because there needs to be other people in the mid-card, like that's a huge problem. And it's the same issue on Raw, where the entire women's mid-card is basically just Lyra Valkyria until they brought Becky Lynch in. It's been basically Lyra Valkyria, and then that's it. She's been wrestling the same people over and over again. And now Zelina Vega and Chelsea Green and Mi Chen and all them. They're just wrestling each other over and over again. They need to flesh that division out. And adding Julia helps, because if you don't have a plan for her to be at the top, her being right here could be pretty goddamn good, and she could establish this title. This title needs to be established, because Chelsea Green is not the kind of champion. She can be the champion, but she's a character. She's a gimmick. She's 100% gimmick. In the ring, she's not great. She's not even good. Chelsea Green is barely passable in the ring. All right, barely. Again, she's very much the female version of The Miz. Zelina Vega is passable as well, but she doesn't have as much personality. She's not as creative. And the Zelina Vega babyface thing is not working out. I liked her when she was a lot like Selena De La Renta in MLW, where she was basically the business manager of Andrade. That seems to be where she really had a nice little groove. Ever since and I liked Queen Zelina. I thought that was pretty good too, because they got to show a little bit more of her personality and give her something to talk about. Now she doesn't have a character, and so now she's just thrown out there to have matches, and those matches are meh, and the whole run has been meh, because there's nothing behind them. There's no storyline behind it. There's no character behind it. At least Chelsea Green had a gimmick, you know? Like, there's nothing here with Zelina. She's hollow and empty. We need to do something there. And maybe you need to take the belt, maybe. So that's going to be forthcoming, and to nobody's surprise. The Street Profits came out. They said they ain't afraid of nobody. They'll give anybody a shot. All the tag teams came out there, and then the Wyatt Six attacked them all again, to far less fanfare than the first time. When the Wyatt Six appeared last week, it was great. They got holy shit chants, and everybody was super excited. When they did it this week, it was kind of, just doing the same thing all over again, huh? Later on, Uncle Howdy got on the screen and said that they want what's owed to them. I don't know what that means. Nobody knows what this means. But the tag team division is quote unquote on fire. It's basically just them brawling every week. Most of these teams don't get a reaction. Nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about DIY. Nobody cares about the Motor City Machine Guns. People care about the Wyatts, but they care about them less every time they see them. Fraxium is too new. The Street Profits have been around forever. They're a staple of the tag team division. I hate their new theme song. The new theme song sucks. And let me tell you this. If Metro Boomin wants to jump in at some point and start doing theme songs, because he's requested it, and I think that there needs to be some public pressure on getting Metro Boomin to do wrestling themes. We need push. We need to create that petition. I don't know how we do that. Change.org petition to get Metro Boomin to make the wrestling themes, at least for a few of these talent. The Street Profits need to be one of them, because this new theme song sucks ass. It's not good. But if he wants to make theme songs, I'm 100% with it. I think that they should just naturally go and find people who are in the music business. And, maybe their time is up. Or various producers. I think when they did the Jake One, John Cena song, Jake One wasn't a big producer yet. So that was a good look for them, because that song became incredibly popular. And it was before Jake One, started hitting the charts with other artists. And that's what they need to do. Go, especially if you want to make rap songs. Because there's, as mediocre as rock songs are, the generic rock music, as terrible as that is, generic rap is even worse. Because generic rap is just god fucking awful. So I'm going to put my hands together and hope Metro Boomin can at least get 5 or 6 people. There's like 5 or 6 people that I think he should do a new song for, and that would be great. But the Street Profits are definitely one of those teams, because this theme, or they need to go back to the original theme. I don't think there's anything wrong with the original theme, and I don't see how the characters are any different. And most of the time, when people are saying, look, I won't change my song because I'm changing my character. Well, the Street Profits haven't changed that much. So why would you change their theme song? That's stupid. But the Wyatt Six, oh boy, they don't feel special, and there's no forward motion here with this tag team division. They look like they're building up to some sort of triple threats, fatal four-way situation. Well, not even fatal four-way because there's already 4 teams involved. I don't know what it's going to, is it a tag team battle royal? Like, what are you going to do? You already got 4 teams, so I don't know. It would be nice if there were feuds going on in this thing. It's just a gray glob. This team attacks this team, and these guys attack these guys, and the only people sitting at home are Pretty Deadly. They're the only ones sitting at home like, oi, we're not on TV. Why is that? Because, well, you've been replaced by Fraxium. That's why. We don't care about Pretty Deadly anymore. Los Garza, they're still there. They won a match for the first time in ages. And it just so happened they beat Javon Evans. Los Garza, Angel and Humberto. I looked up both of these guys because I was like, man, I know they're cousins. But I was like, I wanted to see how they were related to Hector Garza, who I know, of course. And I didn't realize that both of their names is Humberto. Both of their real names is Humberto. Like, that's strange. Oh my God. I couldn't imagine me and my cousin having the same name. Shit. But they just have different surnames. That's it. But Los Garza versus Javon Evans and Ray Phoenix. Now, whoever came up with the idea of Javon Evans and Ray Phoenix, they were cooking with grease. All right. I like the idea of this pairing. Ethan Page was outside the ring on commentary, so they're giving him some shine. And Ethan Page, of course, attacked Ray Phoenix from behind, got super kicked by Javon Evans. Then we got some chicanery from Santos Escobar, and Ethan Page pushed Javon Evans from the top rope, leading to Los Garza winning a match. And I couldn't believe Los Garza won a match, but they did. I guess they wanted to put heat on Ethan Page for the big match at Worlds Collide, and they wanted to make Legado del Fantasma look legitimate because the Mexicans are going to be watching. It's not like the Mexicans haven't been watching so far. The Mexicans have been watching this whole time, bro. And they've been watching Los Garza lose for 3 fucking years, all right? Now you want to give them one match thinking, hey, you guys got momentum going. No, they're losers. And they lose all the time. They lose all the fucking time. But Javon Evans, this is his debut on SmackDown, if I remember correctly, and he lost. I don't like that. It fits his NXT booking, though, so it's not like it's a sharp departure from the way he was booked in NXT. But I don't like it. This Ethan Page SmackDown debut as well. I think he looked good here. I think he carried himself quite well. Ray Phoenix not winning again. I'm not a fan of Ray Phoenix losing, but somebody's got to win. Shit. So everybody can't win. Somebody's got to lose. It might as well be Javon Evans, and it might as well tell a story. And the story is simple. Ethan Page is fucking over the 2 guys he has to wrestle at the pay-per-view. So it is what it is. Those guys win. They got lucky because Ethan Page was out there. So the last thing to talk about is Damian Priest. So Damian Priest cuts a promo in the middle of SmackDown where he talked about, well, he stumbled bummed through his promo, the opening part of his promo. He lost the crowd when he stumbled over his words. We got to show some grace to people who are doing public speaking. Too often, when guys are stumbling over their words, we immediately attack them. We immediately, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, he sucks. It's like these guys aren't stand-up comedians or anything like that. It's gonna take some time to get through these things. But as soon as he botched the beginning of that promo, people lost. They were like, boo, what? Boo. No grace whatsoever. They just jumped up and down on his back and just started disrespecting him. But he said that they've been beefing for a year, him and Drew McIntyre. They took it to the cage. He won. McIntyre's in the past. And he said that beef cost him a spot at Money in the Bank. But he has unfinished business with Jacob Fatu. He respects Jacob Fatu, but he doesn't respect the people he surrounds himself with. And he thinks that Jacob Fatu is the most badass champion in WWE. And he wants to fight him for that United States Championship. He wants to be El Campeón Wepa once again. And the only thing I could write in the margins is, why doesn't he want to be world champion? Hey, it's good that people want to be United States champion. It's good that people see Jacob Fatu as the kind of guy they want to test themselves against. All of that is great. And yes, sometimes guys do want to be a champion, and they don't really care what kind of champion. But what makes a mid-carder is a mid-card mindset. You know, mid-card mindset is this, right? Mid-card mindset is, I just beat a top guy in Drew McIntyre, who is a former world champion, who beat Brock Lesnar, who won the Royal Rumble. So in my mid-card brain, I'm only good enough to be the United States champion now. What? You know, like, the whole idea between this Drew McIntyre Damian Priest thing is that it was an angle for Drew McIntyre to deviate from him wanting to be the world champion, or for him being world champion. And that personal feuds draw more money, you know, depending on your personality and your character work, which is good. You know, instead of giving Damian Priest another personal feud, you know, they decided to downgrade him to the U.S. title. Now, the only reason it's a downgrade is because even though they say that Jacob Fatu is a top guy, he hasn't been in the top positions yet. You know, he's still hanging around with Solo. They're still doing mid-card shit with JC Mateo and R-Truth. He hasn't completely broken free of that mid-card shit yet. And now Damian Priest is like, yeah, you know, John Cena isn't defending the title. That's okay. I'll fight Jacob Fatu. And like, there's no good reason for that. You know, there's no good reason why Damian Priest shouldn't want to be world champion. It just doesn't make sense. But this is what they're going with. I'm not going to complain too much. I'm not going to complain at all about that. I mean, I think most of us don't really get the Damian Priest thing anyway. We're looking at it and saying to ourselves, I'm not sure this push is working. It's not hurting, but it's painfully mid, and nobody seems to give a shit, if we're being honest. Later, they did a promo with LA Knights and Aleister Black, where Aleister Black took credit for LA Knights' win. That was the only thing Aleister Black did all night. Wasn't a big fan of that. He took him out of the spooky closet, though. He wasn't in the dark. He was actually out in the daylight. He was wearing a towel. He's wearing a towel, though. So he's like a vampire. He's got to cover his skin in daylight. But he's already kind of off the track. See, that's the thing that I was concerned about, is that there would be nothing for Aleister Black after a couple of weeks. And here it is. He's been back about a month, and he's doing backstage stuff with LA Knight. And instead of building a feud, they gave him 3 matches, 1 against The Miz, 2 against Carmelo Hayes, and then he did a triple threat match. And now he's just wandering around backstage with the rest of them. I mean, again, this is problematic, but what can you do? When you have both world titles tied up in a tag team match for the pay-per-view, the Money in the Bank is what it is. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. You don't have enough space. You don't have enough personal feuds going on to make the rest of the show interesting or to satisfy the rest of the roster. You know what I'm saying? Like, Aleister Black should be doing something. He should be important on the show. He should be pushed as an attraction. At the very least, he should not be one of the boys. LA Knight has been over for 3 years. He should be higher up on the card. He shouldn't just be a guy doing a backstage interview. But there's nothing you can do about this. You know, there's only so many spots and there's so many people. But that's why you got to have more personal feuds. That's why you got to have more storylines. You know, you can't run a show with 5 fucking storylines. And then you got all these people just basically sitting around waiting to have their random match. And that's it. But let's look at SmackDown in totality. The Cody and Cena segment was kind of mid. Wasn't a really big fan. I did like the Jacob Fatu Andrade Carmelo Hayes triple threat match. I thought that was good. The Wyatts, diminishing returns with the Wyatts. I don't think anybody really cares about Damian Priest. The Tiffany Stratton stuff, she was barely on the show. She has no contenders. So she's basically sitting around waiting for Money in the Bank, which is not a good thing. There should at least be some contenders for Tiffany's title. Somebody who is not in the Money in the Bank match who wants to fight her, or who was denied an opportunity to be in Money in the Bank who wants to fight. They did do a thing with her and Alexa Bliss, but who cares about that, really? They're not really putting a lot of emphasis on Alexa Bliss. I don't know if we needed JC Mateo versus Truth. I don't know if we need JC Mateo at all. The Bianca Belair and Naomi segment was fantastic. It was probably my favorite segment on the show. Easily my favorite segment on the show. Los Garza versus Javon Evans and Rey Fenix was fun. The Alba Fire Zelina Vega thing was the Nia Jax, Naomi, and Jade Cargill match was So it's a thumb in the middle episode of SmackDown. It wasn't boring, but it got boring in the middle because there wasn't a lot there for me. Like around the time the Alba Fire and Zelina happened, I was kind of like checked out. But at least we got the Los Garza versus Javon Evans and Rey Fenix around that time. And then we got the Jacob Fatu Andrade thing at the end. And I was interested in what would be said in the Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul, John Cena, and Jey Uso segment. But what happened is Cena came out and cut the same monotone promo. And then Cody Rhodes made a dick joke. What are you going to do? Polish his peacemaker? Oh my God. No more dick jokes, sir. Stop it. But SmackDown was thumbs in the middle. At least the stars were on the show, unlike Raw. The stars were featured. So that's a positive. And we're going to take our positives where we can. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.